Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Shawn and Sus Show. It's been a while. Fantasy football, it's all here. It's all happening. Next week, the NFL starts up on Thursday night with the Eagles and Cowboys, but drafting is not done yet, folks. We've got one more week to go, and now's the time to get in some really unique combinations, to say the least. We got players flying up the board. We got players falling like rocks. Teams are being built every day that haven't been built before, and that's going to continue to be the case. So as we come down this home stretch, we're going to help you guys attack the late rounds the right way, avoid the zeros, get the major hits. Maybe get this year's Puka, and if there's not a Puka, get the closest we can get. But Shawn, how are you doing? How's best ball summer treating you as we come down this final stretch?
Good. I feel like it's just been a chaotic, especially the last couple weeks with news. It seems like the league trades a lot more, so there's a lot more news and changes, and it seems like this rookie class is just really deep across the board. So these guys are winning these camp battles, and drafting every day seems like it's different, even room by room. Sometimes you can get someone really cheap to fall at the next draft. You're just totally sniped and you're just down horrendous, and you just paid the rake. So I've been loading up more BBMs than I expected. Let's just put it that way.
Hey, if you don't try, you miss 100% of the shots at $2 million that you don't take. So I hear you on that, man. Keep firing. Use code whatever for whatever. We're not getting paid around here, but
no, we should get a real underdog referral that's not like some gibberish.
Yeah, not just like the basic code that everyone gets. We got to get the established Shawn and Sus underdog code. But until that day comes, we're not showing anything except for this entire video talking about their product. Nevertheless, we are going to hit people with the 10 sleepers that they can use on any platform, whatever platform you're using. All right, well, let's get right into it. Torrey Horton is my number one, flying up draft boards. Currently has an ADP of 175.2. Man, he's got a pretty good run out as of late. MVS gets cut. Kind of surprising. Not if you've been following the beats lately, but just that they would pay a guy $4 million and still cut him this year. I think a good amount of that was guaranteed. So Torrey Horton, according to multiple beat reporters, has won. It's not just speculation like, oh, maybe he could be the wide receiver 3. Maybe no, he is the wide receiver 3. He's going to be playing over Jake Bobo dominantly. Bobo will still probably rotate in a little bit, but Cooper Kupp's not like 100% snap share guy at this stage in his career. So at worst, we have the wide receiver 3 on the Seahawks. He prototypes as a guy who can win deep. He wins deep pretty well. Sam Darnold likes to throw deep. Sam Darnold's not just going to be dinking and dunking. He's going to take some shots. Those shots could go to Torrey Horton more than a Cooper Kupp, more than a JSN, who primarily operate in the short and intermediate. And there's a chance that Cooper Kupp is totally washed, and that by the end of the season, if he's not hurt, like he literally always is, Torrey Horton could just flip him, if the Seahawks are trying to win games. So I personally had a day 2 grade on Torrey Horton as a prospect. He had some injury concerns, dropped him in round 5. So we're getting a talented player, getting the role, getting the buzz, making plays in the preseason. I mean, it's all coming together for Torrey Horton to pay off this price, at least pretty well, and could pay off like exponentially.
Yeah, I tend to like him too. I think the MVS cut was huge for me personally because they're making it very official. It would be very the teams are incentivized to at least have some gray area there where they keep MVS on the team, and maybe they see how it goes with Torrey. He's just a rookie, but the fact that they just hard cut him, I was taking him anyway, just off the buzz of camp. And sometimes when there is smoke, there is fire. Obviously, sometimes it's not 100% and the team can be excited, but the player just doesn't perform or the team doesn't perform. But I think the MVS cut was really big for me. But just as a caveat, are you concerned that this is a super run-heavy offense? it seems like Zabel, they're pretty happy with him, but it's a little shaky of a line there too. Does it seem like they're a little more conservative and it might lower some of his numbers? I think it's hard for me to argue against the price, and the upside is a deep threat. Best ball is a perfect marriage there. But how do you think of those concerns?
If he only stays as the wide receiver 3 all season, it's going to be a little tougher for him to have the mega smash that you really hope for. But I do think his game pairs well, at least in terms of winning deep with Darnold and what Darnold likes to do. Really saw some awesome spike weeks last year from Jordan Addison. Now, I'm not saying he is Jordan Addison, but at least Darnold can dial that up and take those shots, and Torrey Horton can get up and make those plays. But it's also a bet against Cooper Kupp, who talk about the older receivers in this free agent class. I thought he was the most washed of them all down the stretch in December and in the playoffs. He looked terrible to me. He couldn't get open at all. He was a complete shell of his former self. And I think the Seahawks had a really terrible free agency in terms of that flurry when they got Kupp and Darnold and moved on from Geno and moved on from DK. I liked the draft they had, actually. Some of the guys they brought in, but that flurry of the vets, I mean, we saw it materialize with MVS. That was a mistake. I think Cooper Kupp's going to prove to be an even bigger mistake, whether he gets hurt, as again, he rarely finishes the season healthy, or he might just be total dust. Bad contracts get given out all the time. People say, oh, you got $45 million. It's like, okay, Gabe Davis got about that like last year and is already cut. So teams give out bad contracts all the time. I think this is going to prove to be one of them. And by the end of the year, they might be like, dang, Cooper, it's not like Cooper Kupp has done, what he's done for the Rams, for the Seahawks. They don't owe him anything. If Torrey Horton's like way better, he's going to play over him potentially late. So if we can get Torrey Horton in 2 wide receiver sets, that is like wheels up for me.
That makes sense. And I think it's good process to see a veteran that's a bit in decline, especially when the performance is pretty rapid. We've seen it even with legendary guys. Even Julio's dropped off. DeAndre Hopkins has fell pretty hard from where he was. So even though Cooper Kupp in the 21-22 season was maybe the best receiver in the world, that's 4 years ago. And that has to matter with how we're thinking about it. I think Cooper is okay where he goes, just because he'll get easy targets and it's a good floor to like kind of patch up the receiver room if you want a little aggressive other places. But it wouldn't be surprising. And MVS has been a relevant guy on playoff teams for many years. And for him to just get thrown to the side by a 5th rounder right away is pretty incredible. I think that's that's the most telling to me. And I think Sam Darnold, obviously it's a different offense, different situation, but I think he was top 10 in fantasy points above 20 yards thrown last year, which that's not really, as you said, like that's not really JSN's game. He can a little bit, but if anyone's doing it on this team, it's him and maybe Arroyo. But to think a tight end's going to come and like steal all that thunder is ambitious. Maybe they fight each other a little bit, but at price, I think it's a total smash. So I'm with you there.
Sure, click there. Moving on to the next one. Shawn, if you'd like to take it away with your guy.
Oh, this has been my guy for a while. Isaac Tesla, one of the top athletes in the class. As an analytics guy, I'm supposed to hate him, but I have taken a step outside of the college production cult to find a guy that I really like. I like that Detroit traded a lot of team investment. I thought that the guy playing ahead of him, Tim Patrick, was okay in Denver a couple of years ago, but he just clearly was someone that was beatable. In order for these rookies to ascend quickly, you want both a quarterback that's going to get yards, also applies to Darnold. Goff is around the league lead in yards, and a veteran that can be usurped. And Khalif Raymond's cooked in this offense. Tim Patrick has had games and moments. So why not Tesla, someone that's done well in preseason? He's a crazy athlete. He doesn't have to be the most refined route runner on the field. And if you kind of think of it from a defensive perspective, you have to guard Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, Gibbs out of the backfield for a line that should give Goff a lot of time. Tesla's not going to get anything less than more than single coverage pretty much all season. So I think he's a total smash in a offense that we all love. I think they'll be fine. They'll probably maybe be fourth, fifth, sixth in the league. And for best ball purposes, you see what he can do with the ball in his hands and in the red zone. And those are things that we love. And at his price, it's still incredible that he goes this late.
And he kept scoring in the preseason. He couldn't stop scoring. And people will say, oh, well, preseason production, how much does that really matter? Well, it mattered enough that they would jettison Tim Patrick. And like you said, Tesla's locked into 3 wide receiver sets. The dude play waiting to happen. He might not generate the most separation, but you don't need to when it's a really well-schemed offense that scores a lot of touchdowns. He's going to be a red zone threat. I think he's going to get a lot of jump balls, 50-50 balls, and he looks like he comes down with them. Not to mention, like you said, he's not going to be the focus of a defense. So when you're that big and that fast, you're getting schemed up, and you're getting really well-designed schemes. Like, not like they're designing the play for Tesla, but he's just going to break free because the defense is going to have to cover JMO and ARSB and Laporta and Gibbs. It's like something's got to give.
Yeah.
And it could be the athletic freak just running free, running hot on touchdowns,
Yeah,
So,
and Goff has enough minds to go first, second, third read too. It's not like
right.
some rookie that's locked in on like his first guy and then panics. And they go for it a lot on for a high caliber offense that's so aggressive on fourth down into the red zone. Just the sheer volume of potential touchdown opportunities for him is as big as it's going to get, because just old school running it, unless it's 4th and 1, is usually like not advisable.
And they're going to have, he's got contingent upside too. If any of these guys get hurt, even if Laporta gets hurt, I think that means more Tesla. So, for best ball, which we're kind of talking about here, I love him. I think he's going to have quiet weeks. I think he's going to have spike weeks, but that's what we care about in best ball. We want the spike weeks, like Alec Pierce. You'll take the down weeks for an Alec Pierce to get the 3 20-point games he gives you. And Tesla's on an even better offense, than the Colts are on. So I'm pretty pumped on this guy. I don't think you can chase him up high enough. The range 150s, like a lot of those receivers are kind of brutal at the moment.
Yeah.
And this guy's got the contingent. He's got the standalone spikes potentially. So very, very fun click for sure. And they don't have another receiver to really compete with him at the moment, do they?
Just Khalif Raymond, but he's only come in spot duty, and he fulfills a very specific role, because when they're in those tight red zone situations, when it's 4th and 4, 4th and 5, it was pretty much Laporta, because Amon-Ra is a creative route runner, but that's a certain skill set. To be a big guy in those situations is just such an asset. If you can just take their worst corner one-on-one, that's someone who could get fed. I'm not saying he's going to get like 10 touchdowns, but it could just be week 17 and Minnesota's third corner is on him and he just mosses him 2-3 times. That's as unsurprising as can be.
It's crazy to think that, people are thinking about the Lions offense regressing this year, but they've done everything they've done in recent years without a real wide receiver 3. And, sometimes an offense can only be strong as its weakest part.
That's true.
Because if you don't have that 5th weapon that can threaten, it's like, okay, we can focus more on the guys that do. When you can go 5 skill position guys like wide that like are a problem, I think it can just like compound to be like greater than the sum of the parts and really break. So honestly, I think Goff as a passer, he's live to have another crazy season. And Tesla's going to
Yeah,
contribute to that.
for yards and touchdowns, and that's what we want from our best ball guys. Now, maybe for redraft, you'd like him to run a little bit, but he could lead the league in yards, touchdowns, because there's so many options. Then, yeah, you can't like slide all your guys on Laporta and to all these guys. At some point, what do you do? Like, there's so many good weapons.
For sure. Yeah, popping over to the next guy, Ollie Gordon. Getting a bit of steam now. Today it did come out that Devon Achane is going to play week 1, most likely. They're optimistic about it. So I think the Ollie Gordon hype is going to cool off a little bit just because a lot of his hype was on, oh man, he might start a week or 2 or 3 for Achane. But I think you should stay excited on this dude. 2023, he was one of the best, if not the best running backs in the country. Had a rough 2024, had some injury concerns, but also had a brutal offensive line his last year at college. A lot of people were pretty hype on him coming into this class. He falls to round 6, but we had a lot of talented running backs fall to late day 3 in this class. It's just kind of a function of supply and demand and the fact that everyone knew there were so many running backs, it kind of double counted. So Ollie Gordon is not, your average round 6 running back. In any other class, he's not going round 6.
Yeah.
He's competing with Jalen Wright, who is utter ass. Was terrible last year.
Not adjusted separation score for those.
No, just running back ass, which there's no good
RAS, and not relative athletic score.
No, just straight stone cold.
A lot of acronyms in this game.
A lot of things to stay on top of, but if you watch football, one thing that you don't have to memorize too hard is Jalen Wright totally stinks. He's a total fade for me all summer. You just can't take bad players. Jalen Wright's a bad player. Alexander Madison, who might have been the RB2, out for the season with a neck injury. So RB2 is up for the taking. Ollie Gordon was one of the most impressive running backs in the entire preseason. And he's turning heads. The dude's talented. 225 pounds, just like a big body back.
Yeah.
Behind that terrible offensive line, Achane, as talented as he was one of the tops in the league last year in stuff rate through no fault of his own, in the sense that his size is a little bit of a limiting factor and the offensive line is bad. They need a guy who is like a force that can sometimes just push through when there's nothing there. And Ollie Gordon can make people miss a little bit too. Like, if he's on his game, he's like a legit problem. He could be in the Mostert role. Now, this offense might not be good enough to score as much as a 20-touchdown Mostert did. Yeah. We don't need 20 touchdowns. He could be like an 8-touchdown guy. And if Achane, calves can, we've seen with Halliburton and all types of athletes, like a calf can come back. It could get really bad, God forbid. It's like a bit of a scary injury if they rush back from it. And just the nature of, a smaller running back, if they give Achane as many touches as he had last year with that frame, he could break down at the wrong time. I think Ollie Gordon has a lot of outs to fantasy relevance this year, whether it's as RB2 or something happens contingent-wise RB1.
Yeah, he's someone I've been prioritizing, especially lately. He seems to fill a role that Achane can't do. Jalen Wright seems like kind of this like weird tweener where he's kind of a speed guy, but he's a little bigger, but he's kind of awkward. So it kind of doesn't work, especially for the offense. Like sometimes they just want to pound that thing in the middle and just get a yard or two, like short yardage goal line stuff that Achane isn't good at. And as you alluded to, a smaller back with calf concerns, and Achane's had his own injuries here and there as well. And those backs historically have not taken that level of a workload unless he's really smart and gets down and like avoids hits. That's definitely a room for a role for the second guy to go in there and get at least have a path to relevance, like something that you're looking for in a backup running back, to just even have like maybe some floor as a second guy, or perhaps like a lot of upside. Now, are you concerned with the line, the scheme, the offense, because it obviously any Dolphin you're drafting, you're betting that Mike McDaniel is going to like turn this thing around where the 2 years before this is like a top 10 offense, and then last year you lose Tua and it's like a total disaster.
Yeah, I think the offensive line is a mess, but I think if it was better, we'd be taking Ollie Gordon at like pick 110 or something, kind of like Mostert last year going in the 80s. And Ollie Gordon is a much better running back than Raheem Mostert, who is just simply a function of being right place, right time.
Yeah.
So even accounting for that, I think simply a case of an RB2 who seems like maybe, we're still figuring it out. Maybe one of the better RB2s, young RB2s in the league. Banged up RB1. Just seems like, gun on my head, I think Ollie Gordon might be the goal line back for this team, like pretty early in September.
And I think he should right away. I mean, just given the size and his skill. Now, sometimes the team doesn't. That's what's so optimistic about the other two we mentioned, is that the team's already decided. Like if Miami cut Jalen Wright, where would you? Who's hurt, by the way, right? He's hurt.
Right.
If Miami cuts Jalen Wright tomorrow, where would you draft Gordon?
This might be a little too overglazing the hate for Wright. I think he would move up for sure. I view Wright as like a functional 0 at this point. I don't know if he's going to stay on the team the whole year. They just signed Jeff Wilson to the practice squad. He is a better football player. Jalen Wright has a vision of Najee Harris, on July 5th. Like, just, it's not good. It's not there.
Yeah, that's cold. Yeah.
But
I know what you mean. Yeah, he was a second round dynasty pick. Like his fall off needs to be studied. I don't know if it's a Tennessee thing, but
yeah, he was a Malachi Corley-esque click for sure at the running back position. And so I think Ollie Gordon probably objectively should be priced in like the 130s right now. And he wasn't drafted post-draft for more than half the summer, the main part of the summer. So you're getting a low drafted guy, even if, you're chasing him up into the 150s, 140s, who cares? Most of the teams you compete with in week 15 and 16 won't even have him on their roster. So it's a good leverage piece. It's objectively a good play. Might be a talented player. I'm into it in this range, in this landscape. So moving on to the next one, we've got rookie tight end for the New York Jets, Mason Taylor. Shawn, how do you feel about Mason Taylor?
Amazing, underrated player, a guy who somehow came back from a high ankle sprain in like 3 days. So this man is simply built different. Now, normally I would be very hesitant to endorse a guy on a Jets offense that's one of the worst projected passing offenses. But as you look at the team and where even a limited pie goes to, who else on this team outside of Garrett Wilson is catching the ball? Do you think he's going to lose that much work to Josh Reynolds, who's bounced around a lot? Breece Hall, maybe, but is he going to get 700-800 yards? Probably not. He goes early second round. He's kind of been under discussed and underrated. Even if you're not into Fields as a passer, he feels like the safety blanket in this offense, because if you're looking from a defensive perspective, my first priority when I'm playing the New York Jets, first it would be to stop the run game. But after that, it would be to make sure Garrett Wilson doesn't get the ball. So what does that mean for the other three guys? Then Breece, then Mason Taylor. So just off of pure volume. And for those who aren't like familiar with Mason Taylor's game, he's really like your old school, not like yet at the level of like a Jason Witten, but like that type of like, just runs to the right place, does the right stuff. He isn't like a super flashy athlete or anything like that. But in the tight end landscape, you are maniacally desperate for targets. Maniacally desperate. If anyone who's getting targets is relevant, even if you think he stinks, at 183 ADP, he has a path to targets. And if you look historically at where tight ends that are really cooking, if they're the top 2 option in their offense, that gives them a huge lift. And maybe there's some upside case where Justin Fields can not suck, or it's Tyrod Taylor. And as a passer, obviously, Jeff Fields as a runner is beyond legit, but they can't run some like Georgia Tech triple option offense. They have to throw the ball at some point, even if you're getting 25% of 3,000 passing yards for a team. 750 is to what, tight end 6, 7. I'm not saying he's there, but that's the pretty moderate case.
For sure. Now, the Jets went out today and signed Jelani Woods. Do you have any concern about that particular transaction, or does that feel more like a depth move to you?
It feels like a depth and physicality. Maybe you use him in the red zone, but the fact that he couldn't crack the lineup ahead of like Mo Alley Cox or Kylan Granson. The Colts changed tight ends a lot, so hopefully Warren ends that run. But there's a lot of guys that were not very exciting. I think they're just looking for a depth piece. Maybe he steals some red zone work, but I don't see him getting like some major role, because they drafted a 2nd round pick on him. They could have gotten a lot of talented players
right
in that spot. That's a high 2nd round pick. Like we're looking at some of these other guys. That's like a pretty big team investment. And just overall, the thesis that at least I'm looking at is that this rookie class is very deep. That's why these first 4 guys are rookies. It's just betting on the depth of the class. I think top end, I think last year was better, but the depth of this class is like crazy. And we're seeing it from the team transactions.
Yeah, this is a really good time of year, this late to take some of these rookies. I mean, the first 3 guys we've named are not 100% drafted. Mason Taylor is probably pretty close to it, but he's not entirely. But Mason Taylor has also been locked in to be like the starting tight end pretty much this whole time. He's one of my most drafted tight ends, has been since early on. The talent has grown on me. He's making plays in camp. He's got crazy dog levels to be able to come back from a high ankle sprain or whatever in like a week.
Yeah,
like it was like the most
3-4 days or something crazy. Like
and then he's out there just laying it out for catches. Now he's sick, and there's just such a safe floor there in the sense of the volume that he will get because they have no one else to throw. Now that's scary in terms of sustaining drives, but still an NFL offense. They're going to have some semblance of yards and red zone opportunities. He might not break any receiving yards records, but he could be a sneaky touchdown guy. Like he might be their primary like downfield red zone threat. Like,
yeah, I think
you're
so.
You're inside the 5-yard line. Like you want to throw to him.
Because they're also like, if you're the other team, you want to make sure Garrett doesn't get the ball. Like Garrett's pretty good at those like jump ball contested catch, but he's getting doubled every single play. That's why as a team, they probably should have gotten a little better receivers, unless you're a huge Arian Smith believer. But I don't know if we're reaching that far down the ADP rabbit hole on this video, but
yeah, he might be more of a 2026 click, Arian Smith.
Yeah, I feel like that too.
I've heard he's had a good camp, but that he's still very raw. So yeah, Mason Taylor makes a ton of sense. Keep taking him if you have been, and if you haven't, mix him in, man. Cade Otton, a little banged up, that range, seeing some fragility. Isaiah Likely, don't know when he's going to be back. So Mason Taylor, healthy, safe, locked into routes, locked into targets. What more could you want at that price? Now, moving on. After pick 200, a guy I really like smashing right now, is Jackson Dart, future superstar of my Philadelphia Eagles rival New York Giants. Now, brings me no joy, obviously, to say that the Giants got a star in the making, but it looks like Jackson Dart might just be that. If not that, a very good NFL quarterback. The dude has a hell of an arm. He can scramble a little bit, super efficient in the preseason, has aura, has swag. I know that doesn't count for much in terms of fantasy points. We can look to change that, maybe in future years, but for what it's worth, there's just something about a guy like that who galvanizes a team as a leader. When you're a first round pick and you have that aura and you're producing, that is how you get on the field like early October instead of, at points I thought, man, maybe, Russ got like a contract worth up to 20 million bucks. Like, I don't know. Maybe it is a true red shirt year. Some people were concerned that Dart was a bit raw because some of his efficiency was so crazy in college. He didn't really play in like a true NFL style system coming out, but he's shown through camp, according to all the beats and what we've seen, that he can make these throws. He just happened to play in like a college style system. He's picked up on everything. Daboll is praising and glazing him constantly.
Oh, he loves him. It seems like it's like his golden child type vibe over there.
They're playing Russ first because they gave him the money and they promised him. I promise you, they have a brutal schedule to open the season. If they lose just a couple games, like Daboll is itching, like any excuse he can get to be like, please let me put this guy in. Please. He's trying to save his own job too. So I think Jackson Dart is going to take over sooner rather than later. And this could be like a Bo Nix situation from last year where Bo Nix was a round 18 pick, but gave you a ton of QB1 weeks. That is massive, especially this late in the season where like all our favorite targets are getting pushed up. And you're like, man, I'm in round 18 and I have no idea what to do. I'm like round 17, 18 turn. I'm like out of ideas. Like it's, the guys at the ADP of like the 190 and 200 right now are like all the fallers from like the 140s and 150s that no one wants anymore. Go into the draft thinking, okay, I'm going to have two quarterbacks early. I'm going to tack on this Jackson Dart late, thinking of it like a Bo Nix click. That's massive for the playoff weeks, especially.
Yeah, and I'm just going to read off the Giants' initial schedule to show how brutal this is. At Washington, at Dallas, home Kansas City, Chargers. Okay, the Saints, they should be fine there, but still on the road. Eagles, at Denver, at Philly. That's the first 8 weeks.
They're only going to be favored in one of those games, and the other ones they're not even going to be within 3 or 4 points for a bunch of them. So,
correct that they're favored against New Orleans, and they're more than 4.5 or 3.5 underdog in every single other game, including 4, 5, 6.5 and higher, which is like basically a touchdown. That's like almost as high as an NFL team gets down, at least by that. And there's good weapons over there. It is weird that these first round QBs are just kind of like getting forgotten about. He at least has Malik Neighbors, who's like a top 10 option out there. He also can run. He's not a stationary guy. So there's some upside there as just like a singular guy. He'd love to sling the ball, at least in college. Maybe Daboll doesn't let him do that, but even like Tommy DeVito's cooked in this offense and put up some serious fantasy points back in the day, Daniel Jones. So there's at least enough potential. Now, are you concerned with some of the line, or do you think that the team, obviously the D line is just beyond awesome over there? Like, do you think the team's actually going to be pretty solid? Is it kind of more of a defensive team, or like, are there concerns there?
If the schedule wasn't so brutal, if Jackson Dart is as good as I think he is, I think they could have competed for a wild card. Their schedule, though, is just so brutal. I don't think they're going to be a wild card team, but I think they're going to be like one of the scrappier, like one of the best 5-win teams in NFL history. Like if their defense can stay healthy, you have a bona fide on the track of a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson level receiver. You have Darius Slayton, who's like a perfectly fine deep ball guy. You have an ascending young tight end in Theo Johnson, a nice stable of running backs who all contribute different things. Not elite, but like not bad. And Wan'Dale Robinson is a serviceable slot receiver. A lot of these guys have been held back by Daniel Jones for far too long. And you take that defense and you take some of those weapons with like maybe a real deal quarterback. That's a fun team. But at the end of the day, for fantasy, if you can just get a guy out there who's going to want to sling the pill a bit, um, you know, he's going through it on like if a play is developing, he can like make something out of not a lot. You know, he had that big broken play to what's his name, like Gunnar Olszewski or whatever,
Yeah,
for like 58 yards.
yeah.
Yeah, like that, you know, he scrambled out and like he's like, okay, this like play's kind of breaking down. I'm still gonna hit this guy right where it needs to be and let him make a yak play. And you know, that's not always gonna be sustainable, but like he doesn't just like like fold under pressure. He's
Yeah.
always making plays. He's a playmaker and he's got that confidence that a lot of rookies struggle with that confidence. Like I don't think anything can shake this dude's confidence. And I think he seems NFL ready in the eyes of Dayball, who's going to be itching to put him in. And this guy could be a guy who like low owned again, playoff weeks in a dome in week 17, which we love. You know, he could put
Against
up
the
like a
Raiders,
28 point.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They could totally stink on defense by that point in a dome. That game has explosive players on both sides. It could shoot out. And he's so cheap. Like if you got like a quarterback in round 18 in this current last week of drafting who could give you like a 25-point fantasy week in week 17, like I'm really into that.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I have the Raiders rated as the worst secondary in football. So that's the week 17, the money week. I have their line about in the 20s. So they're not like a total disaster. So I think he can at least survive that. And he has enough wiggle. He's not like a stationary guy or like a big guy that he needs to have like a perfect, pristine pocket. So, I mean, at that price, it's crazy. It is actually insane.
So Jackson Dart, that's a guy, you know, guys, you're drafting your teams, you're going in like, how can I, you know, get a little creative, you know, still have something around 18 that I like, you know, getting a little grosser. Jackson Dart is one of the last remaining rounds, you know, 17, 18 turn clicks that has that real star potential. So something to think about. Next up, speaking of young studs, our first
Jalen
non-rookie.
Coker.
Let's go, Cokeheads. Rise
Jalen
up.
Coker, the Cokeheads. I will not be reenacting the memes that are on Twitter. Noses are very stuffy, perhaps at times. So Coker, in very limited time, produced like crazy. Not only was trading Adam Thielen a huge endorsement. Adam Thielen last year was one of the best receivers in football against man coverage. He can still play. This isn't some washed, like, just bring back the team leader, clubhouse mentor. No, Adam Thielen is the slot now in Minnesota. But what that means for the Carolina Panthers perspective is that this is a huge endorsement on Jalen Coker. Renfro's on the practice squad. And last year when Jalen Coker played, his advanced numbers were crazy good. He was a 10% catch rate over expected, which got to be top 10, 15 in the league. That doesn't always like sustain year to year, but it shows that he has good hands. He's not Dontavian Wicks. Also, he was a plus yards after the catch guy, meaning that he got yards after catch over what's expected based on like where he caught the ball and advanced it. And this was in limited time, and he had a connection with Bryce. And this was last year, and the team is endorsing him in terms of making these moves to clear the runway for him. And he was frankly just straight up better than Xavier Legette last year. He was one of the best advanced stat guys, like, period, as a receiver in limited time, albeit, but this is someone who has a huge opportunity. Just wherever the easy button and Staples is at, I am pressing. Jalen Coker is an easy button press. Like,
no two ways about it. He's been a talent bet this whole summer for me. I'm like, I don't know how he's going to get there, but I'm just going to bet on the talent, and sometimes that's all you can do. I was a fan of Coker last year entering the season, just hoped he would get a chance, and Dave Canales, very sharp coach, gave him a chance. And now Adam Thielen's out the door. And so are you concerned about just like, is Bryce Young actually going to take a leap? Now you have to contend with a real potential target hog in Teteroa McMillan. Or
True.
do you think there's enough meat on the bone for a Jalen Coker, an ascending, fun, year 2 wide receiver? Tet can eat, but can Coker still eat as well?
I think on an efficiency basis, I do have some degree of concern with the Panthers. Who knows if they have enough, like the line is good. Canales we think is a pretty good offensive coach. Seems to have like some QB whisperer type of things. At least we saw in the second half of last year. Bryce Young was still pretty good, genuinely as a passer. And we saw at least before they played Houston, who's an elite defense, by the way. You should, for DFS, to keep that in mind. But I think there's enough targets there. I think he could really be genuinely the second guy in the offense. Now, is he capped a little bit because Tet is the number one focus? Sure. But as I've kind of mentioned a few times, when the other team has like some degree of priorities on the other guys, that we've seen the T. Higgins, the Devonta Smiths, the number 2 guys really cook in some of these offenses. And with Coker's advanced numbers, he also was a plus against man and zone, which you can't say for a lot of receivers. Some guys, even like, I'm not saying he's better than Rashee Rice, but Rashee is like absolutely all world against zone, but man is like not so great. Like Coker was at least a plus in both. So that's helpful. His yards versus like what he was expected to get, like he's done all he could. It maybe if there's some concerns with the offense, but you're taking like past like Romeo Dobbs and that, like it's like Kyle Williams. It's rough seas. Like we don't know if Josh Palmer is going to play after like Dobbs and Tillman. It gets really, really, really gross pretty fast. And why not him?
How would you rank? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Sure.
But we have the 3 guys with the fallout from this trade: Coker, Leggett, and Adam Thielen now on the Vikings. Sure. How would you rank those 3? Because you got Coker, who's the youngest that has proven something of the 2 younger guys, but you have Leggett, kind of like the QJ Quentin Johnston thesis from last year, where first round wide receiver, this team's going to try to make something of him. And then you have Adam Thielen, still a good player, but really up there in age. That wall can come, but in an offense with, target opportunity early and a quarterback who's pretty good at targeting the short and intermediate. So how would you rank those 3 if you had to right now?
I would go Coker, Thielen, Leggett. Now, I think Leggett is kind of more of a real life receiver where they can put him in like manufactured touches, Debo type of stuff. He's an amazing athlete. So I think they'll still use him and he'll be valuable for the real team. I think for fantasy, Coker, as I kind of mentioned, with just his bag in terms of as an undrafted free agent to force a trade. Now, the Carolina Panthers have already made the first decision for us that they believe that he's better than Thielen in that regard. I think Thielen is good, but he has a lot of competition there, and he's going to not be a priority, and his volume can raise up and down. And for his purposes, he wants to be back where he's comfortable in, and he wants to be on a team that's could win a lot of games. They won 14 games last year. So I would go Coker, Thielen, and then Leggett. But I think all of them are fine where they're getting taken. I just think there's like a big drop off. How about you? Where would you?
I think I ranked them the same. Early season, it's going to be pretty fun for Thielen, but Coker's still going to get maybe the same amount of routes as Thielen and, hold on to them. He's not going to be competing with a Justin Jefferson and a Jordan Addison and a Hawkinson, even if the Vikings offense is better. It's just set up really well for Coker. I think of everyone on this list, he's going to move up the most in the next few days. So pack those Coker bags and take him ahead of ADP. It's not going to be 190, the day after this video comes out, and 2 days after that, the price of the brick's going up, so to speak.
Big time. Yeah, that's a funny thing. So when you're putting the ADP values, like it's so fluid that it can change in a snap.
It's gonna. I think we're gonna by tomorrow and 2 days from now, Coker in the 150s is going to be like normal. So grab them now. Grab them in the 170s,
It's like,
160s.
I was
Do what you got to
just
do.
pull my phone out, grab it now, and I'm later.
Next up, Ilick Ayo Manor. Ayo Manor. I gotta figure out. I know it's
My
Ayo.
best guess is Io Manor, but
I heard it was Ayo. I remember that part,
really,
but it's either Manor or Manor. Ayo Manor. I'm gonna go with that tonight. Subject to change in the next sentence. But Elick, Tennessee Titans, potentially the only true X receiver they have on the team. Big body dude, good blocker, has been just having a very solid camp. Up and down production in college. Really good size adjusted athlete, though, and can win deep. Has had massive games. Seems like he's over all his injury concerns. And, the Titans are starving for guys who can run routes and be productive. He was targeted at a pretty reasonable rate by Cam Ward in multiple preseason games.
yeah,
That was with Calvin Ridley out, but even so, relative to the other people on the field, he was commanding targets at a pretty high rate. And I think that sooner rather than later, if not right away, Elick is going to be in 2 wide receiver sets on this team. That's very exciting for Cam Ward, who seems like a legit player. People are just kind of disrespecting the Titans right now. Not that they're going to win a ton of games, but just acting like Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard are the only ones who will do anything of fantasy relevance. Kind of silly. Now, Elick is moving up, but I don't think he's moved up quite enough. He's a really fun back stack. He's a really fun regular stack with Cam Ward. He's fine on his own because he could just have a very solid season in a range where there's a lot of gross receivers right now. So we're keeping the rookie trend going because, when a rookie like this gets the buzz from everyone in camp and it matches what we see in the preseason and it matches what we know about their depth chart and what they need on the field.
yeah.
I don't think this is going to be like a home run. I think this is like a very solid double, for your team. Just a safe bet for being on the field, not a zero, and could have some spike weeks.
I feel you on that. And Cam Ward is beyond underrated for the number one overall pick, like unanimous number one overall pick. To have such little hype and kind of just be stuck there in 150. And we've seen flashes of elite arm talent. We'll see how much his like processing and how he knows the game. Of course, he's a rookie like anyone else. But on that basis, I'm certainly with you there. And we think the Titans are going to be pretty bad. We think they're going to lose games. And when you're losing games, you got to throw the football. And Ridley, Lockett, Chig, Okonkwo, they're going to be out there and they're going to need him. And it seems like from preseason usage, he might have a catch or two with Ridley, but I have to like double check that. I feel like Ridley got a little bit of snaps with him, but in any case, are you concerned with Chig and Lockett kind of stealing more of that pie? Of course, Calvin Ridley seems pretty locked in to like 25-30% of this offense regardless, which is relevant depending on where he goes.
I think there's enough meat on the bone with a quarterback as good as Cam Ward to have, at these prices. I think Chig and Elick can both pay off. You're talking about you don't have another receiving option on this team in the top 150. That's kind of rare to only have one receiver in the top 150. Now he goes in the 5th round, but it just shows like, okay, there's like a decent amount of targets up and potentially high quality targets up for grabs. I think Chig can get there as well as Elick. Lockett, if he ends up factoring in heavily, that could cut into the ceiling case for Elick. Lockett feels a bit washed to me.
Yeah.
He still had he can still get you like 500 yards or whatever, but he'll have some production. But that seems more as like a tertiary, just kind of side. Yep. Oh, there's Tyler Lockett. Just another old Titans
Yeah.
are ready to be put out to pasture as
they are
receivers do.
notorious for that. Like Julio, there's some others. I mean, you could argue Hopkins.
Just guys go there, it's like an old sick dog walking out into the woods. You just know what they're there for. And it's not the beginning of something fruitful. It's the end. So Elick, I'm not worried about DK. I'm not worried about Restrepo or Van
He's practice
Jefferson for
squad
that
now,
matter.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it seems like Van is had that explosive play, but at the same time, he's bounced around so much that at least maybe it might take a bit. Like if it's redraft and it's like the first Imanor might be on more of a classic like rookie route where it takes 4 or 5 weeks. It's just the other guy seems like so unprecedented. That's why there's like a tiers thing going on. But I think by middle of the season, it could definitely change over. Lockett could just be just a field stretching option. And just for those who aren't familiar with Cam Ward, watch his Miami highlights. This guy is slinging the pill, both from a quality standpoint and he is a gunslinger at heart. Now, will the Titans allow him to do that off the rough days of Will Levis? So TBD, I guess, but he's not he's not a dink and dunk type of quarterback. And when there's enough air yards and opportunity, that's going to spell pretty good for someone who you're getting in the 180s in that kind of a stack.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Shout out Elick. Come around on him. We've gone through our ups and downs together, but I see the vision now for him. Moving on to the next one. Got another rookie, this time a running back. DJ Giddens, Sean.
DJ Giddens, especially so in redraft, it depends on your philosophy of like handcuffs. I think he's one of the best handcuffs in football. We both liked him as a prospect at Kansas State. He gets on the surface, it seems like a bad landing spot, but Jonathan Taylor has missed time the past few seasons. At least he's had like different ankle issues. As a pure rusher, he's taking a lot of contact and getting tackled quite a bit. So there's a lot of room for him to potentially have games as the starter. The Colts have, in my eyes and the eyes of many, as like a top 10 offensive line. So if this guy gets the opportunity as a real backup, they banished Khalil Herbert to the practice squad. I guess Goodson is still there, but Giddens got a lot of the early snaps ahead of Goodson in some of the playoff weeks or preseason weeks, excuse me. The preseason weeks ahead of Goodson. He's more of a pure running back. Goodson's a little bit more of a pass catching option. So I think that with the Colts offense that's potentially ascending with so many options with Warren, Pittman, Downs, A.D. Mitchell, Alec Pierce, as a guy who's a backup who's essentially been completely forgotten about. I used to get him round 18, like just at the end. It's like it's 216 overall. I'm just like, oh, the backup for the Colts is here. Wow, what on earth? But now he goes like 190, 194, it says. So I just think it's as good of a contingent upside as anybody, like an Algier, I guess a B-Rob at this point, who's probably now more of a 150s guy.
Yeah, I think Giddens, like you said, coming out, great prospect profile, great speed, great long speed. And that's kind of what, Jonathan Taylor does a lot of things, but, one of his signature traits is that long speed. I think they say, like, okay, if he goes down, we still create those rushing lanes, get Giddens on, some 60, 70-yard runs. That's definitely in his bag. Yeah, if Jonathan Taylor gets hurt a lot, and if that happens, DJ Giddens is the guy. There's no other guy really right now. I guess Tyler Goodson was having a decent preseason. Like, are you worried about anyone else really competing with them, or are you kind of believing the beats that it's like, yeah, this is Giddens. He is simply the RB2.
They were giving him a lot of opportunity, and it's kind of just a reflection of the whole class that if if Ollie Gordon's able to instantly unseat Jalen Wright, why can't DJ Giddens unseat Goodson? And Khalil Herbert a few years ago was one of the better pure rushers statistically, and he's forgotten about now. He was someone who was a potential candidate and someone who was clouding the Giddens vision as well. And you don't even have to be that potentially awesome behind a very good offensive line. That's not to say that Taylor's not a special player. He is. But if Giddens gets back there as a second guy, there are way worse situations to be the contingent upside option. Even now for Algier that they lost McGarry, that worries me a bit that Algier isn't necessarily just a instant smash if something happened to Bijan. Or Bijan, I think he changed it or something. There's some controversy with him, with his pronunciation. But
Mr. Robinson is what I call
Mr. Robinson. Sir Robinson, my apologies. My apologies to the Best Ball 107 overall. But to get a true backup in a good offensive line with it, let's say a league average offense at his price, I think is insane, especially as a rookie.
Yeah, I think people were just bummed out by the landing spot originally, and they're like, "Oh God, yeah, whatever." They packed their bags, or I don't know. The price doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now. He is creeping back up just a smidge. Now that it really, I think it's starting to settle in for people that like, yep, DJ Giddens is the RB2 to Jonathan Taylor, who Jonathan Taylor's price implies is going to get hurt, because if Jonathan Taylor doesn't get hurt, he really should be a top 15 pick in my opinion.
Easily.
Just based on the production.
He's had some like ankle issues and stuff. He isn't like some super injury prone guy, but chances are he's going to miss like a couple games. And just from a like overall perspective, last year was perhaps should look at the numbers specifically, but it was perhaps the most healthy year for running backs, maybe in NFL history. So that's something to just hedge a little bit as like a fifth running back. Sixth running back or potentially seventh on these best ball teams. So that's something you'd like to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I think we're potentially due for a massive slew of running back injuries. I'm not trying to put that out in the universe, but it's just something that's been eating at me lately. I'm like, man, just the current meta of the gang tackling that occurs, and just, the guys
physicality really, in general, like seems like there's just more fights. They want to play in preseason games. And I think it's very hard to bet against guys, especially a little bit older of a established running back class. Like if you look at some of the injury models, like it's pretty rough. Like to mention like Achan has like above like 10% chance to get injured on one of the injury models in each game. Like, so he's like, you're picking 1 out of 10 out of a hat every game, each time. It's like CMC level. Like, obviously injury models are tough, but this is a guessing game. So we're trying to at least inform ourselves, especially with stuff that's quite subjective, like, and hard to track. But it's like based on like injury history and his build and stuff like that, his age.
No doubt. No, I love that one. And now moving on to my last one. Not a rookie, not even a second-year player. Dameon Pierce. Bet you guys didn't see that one coming, that disgusting Dameon Pierce-ass click. But I promise you, I'm going to enlighten you, and he might be your favorite click that I've offered you guys today. Okay. Joe Mixon. People watching at home, a lot of you guys are going to believe this. I'm starting to believe it maybe a little bit. Joe Mixon might not play football this year, okay? Let's operate under that assumption for the sake of this exercise. No Joe Mixon, out of the picture, okay. People are saying, oh my gosh, Javonte Williams is the cheapest starting running back in best ball. No, he's not. Nick Chubb is. Nick Chubb is the cheapest starting running back. And in some ways, I would be tempted to put him on this list, but we're talking about weeks 15, 16, 17, and we talk about, a new offensive coordinator, the coaching staff that will let the talent win out. Dameon Pierce last year had some really explosive runs, even in the system that he did not really fit in with PFF. Bobby fell out of favor with that offensive coordinator for those couple of years. Had a really good rookie season, though, where he had over 900 rushing yards. And, if he's in the right rushing scheme, which by all accounts he should be this year, he's having a great camp. The reports out of Texans camp is that Nick Chubb is the locked-in starter, but that he's ass. Now, he had an okay preseason game, but are we sure that Nick Chubb holds up for 17 games? I certainly am not. I take Nick Chubb as an advance rate piece. I think he could give you a couple months of just, 4 yards per carry, touchdowns. But at some point, they might be like, okay, we want a little more juice out of this. If Dameon Pierce is better, they're not like so beholden to $2.5–3 million Nick Chubb that he has to hold on to that role.
It's like MVS contract.
I kind of think of it like the Zeke and Rico Dowdle situation last year, where Zeke was like holding on to a decent chunk of that role for the first half of that season. But at a certain point, Rico Dowdle, even though he had less of a pedigree than Dameon Pierce has on the Texans.
I think he was undrafted, right?
Yeah, he was undrafted. He had never had never really done much of anything in the league, but he had looked okay, had the better camp than Zeke, but it's, got to respect Zeke, got to respect Nick Chubb, and they came out of the gates ass. We'll see about Nick Chubb, but devastating injuries, broke his foot again last year. Like, the coaches, the only nice things they've had to say about him are like, man, he had a great career. Like, they're basically writing.
Damn, I haven't heard it like that doomed hard. Like, he's like in the tubes, because he did get some of the early work in preseason and he looked okay. Like, maybe it's just like some nostalgia or just seeing these like older running backs, because it really kind of does come down to Nick Chubb, right? Because Nick Chubb in his career and what he's done, like, he's never, I think the stat, I don't know if that broke last year, was that he never averaged less than 5 yards per carry, even leading up like his whole career, like high school, college, pros, like total legend, like close to Derrick Henry level runner. He's 29. I think he's second year off with a broken leg. So at least he has some time. That's, I think, the real question here is that they signed him. Dameon Pierce back in the day, like when he was a rookie and coming out of college, he was really fun. Like, his college highlights, awesome, very fun watch, very explosive player. He has like that home run, can this guy get me a 70-yard touchdown thing that the best ball world is craving. Nick Chubb obviously doesn't do that, but he could just be a perpetual grinder. I think Woody, at least from college, is going to steal that third down work, so that, I don't know, it just feels gross to me. Now, Pierce does have like this home run potential, but I think he needs a bit of a runway cleared for him. But he has real juice. Like, I don't know if he's had injuries or literally what happened, or just Joe Mixon exists. And why not just put the better running back in?
Yeah. So in late July, D'Amico Ryan said about Nick Chubb, quote, "Guys age. He's been through a lot. It's not always going to be the same as his early years in the NFL. But what I hang my hat on with him is that this guy loves football. That's really good in my loves football points per loving football leagues.
Jeez.
He's physical. He plays and prepares the right way. Yeah, he's a vet. Really sharp guy. So he's smart. He's a nice guy. He was great before, but they get older, and he's going about it the right way. But now he did say later, recently in August, he looks better and better each week. This is of Chubb, especially when we got the pads on. He has the explosion and speed to make plays in this league. I'm impressed with Chubb. So it seems like they're a little more bullish on Chubb now than they were earlier, but the dude is still coming off. And I know you mentioned he had broken the leg. Man, it was a really brutal injury. He tore his ACL, MCL, meniscus, and medial capsule, which is like the cavity and like ligament.
That's like Sean Livingston type stuff, right?
Right. Just as devastating as it can get for the knee. Guys do not often come back from that. And, he looked ass last year, broke his foot. I think I do take him this year. I had 0% Nick Chubb last year. I think 2 years off the injury, he's got a shot. The dude has a crazy work ethic. And at a certain point, if you're projected as the RB1, I'm going to take you. So you could arguably have made this one Nick Chubb and Dameon Pierce, because I think the Texans' backfield could be a reasonably average thing to attack, just from a touchdown and some amount of yards. Just you're filling volume, you're getting your calories. But if I had to pick one for best ball to attack right now, because Nick Chubb is flying up boards. Like, I know his ADP's in like the 160s, but like today he was going like 130s, 140s, 150s.
Like 130, 150. Yeah, exactly. Like that 130, 150 pocket.
And Dameon Pierce isn't even getting drafted at least half the time. And the beat reporters are saying like Dameon Pierce looks better. And so if Nick Chubb comes out flat or does that thing like J.K. Dobbins did last year, where he comes out with some juice but fades, because when you've had that type of injury, your stamina isn't really exactly the same. By like October, November, we're talking about a low-owned round 18 pick here. We don't need Dameon Pierce to even do much early, but I think they're going to give him a shot. He could just be the Rico Dow to Chubb Zeke. So that's kind of
I could see that. And then I'm trying to like project from last year is that first, obviously, you get a degree of schematic upgrade. You're not getting run middle, 3rd and 8, Stroud, please save us. That's definitely important. Number 2 is that Mixon got a crazy amount of volume. I can't see Chubb, even if he's healthy and like, let's say he's like decent, right? I'm trying to think of a good. Not like David Montgomery's actually really good. Let's say he's like slightly better than Javonte Williams. Let's say that. Then there's a lot of room for others to cook in this offense. I think it is a little frustrating that I think Woody's going to get the 3rd down role. That's just what he did at USC. He catches passes.
Yeah.
He's just Damian can too, but Woody's like really like locked in on that. Like it's pretty hard to like take someone out of that role. But I think he has real potential now at his price as someone who can get long yards, and maybe the line's just bad enough. They just need a guy who's explosive, who they can just run tosses and like you figure it out. Because to run between the tackles is a lot more line driven. I mean, it makes sense. Like you play Madden, you run a toss, you have at least a little wiggle room to like figure it out. But in the tackles, no one's blocked. Good luck. Like so.
And this was a Texans offense that was not awesome last year. They might sustain drives better. Last year they had 365 running back attempts, and that was in a season where the offense wasn't really humming or staying on the field that much. So they could have increased volume. It's not like Mixon was super efficient last year. So if you end up at like 22, 23 running back attempts a game, Nick Chubb's he's not even getting 17. Like you could very easily see Dameon Pierce getting like early on, like 5, 6, 7 carries. We saw last year he can house one. He had a 92-yard touchdown last year, and even without that was still pretty efficient at times. In a scheme that was not friendly to his skill set. Offensive line upgrades potentially. Better reports out of their camp as of late about their offensive line looking at least maybe competent, which is
they're
such a big upgrade.
It at least can't get worse. Like if you're ranked like last or second to last, they're at least like rolling the dice and seeing what sticks. And that I think Cam Robinson got cut. Well, one of their left tackle rookies apparently looks awesome. So because the line's a little bit harder to pin down, like sometimes a 4th round guy could just be awesome, like right off the gate. A 1st round guy can suck. Obviously that depends on position. Like QB is very like locked in on your draft capital unless you're Tom Brady, but like that's definitely up and down.
So just, right now, round 18 is so gross. You're looking at like Raheem Mostert and like, running backs that were drafted like in 100% of drafts earlier, you probably have already, grabbed some Jarquez Hunter, and you're looking for like a fresh clicker. You got a little Taj Brooks already. Now, if you don't have those guys, grab some of them. But a lot of those guys were going in every draft early. We're talking about a guy who could be super, super low owned with like the only thing standing in his way to being the starting running back for this team is the cheapest current starting running back in Nick Chubb, who the beats and the coaches are basically implying that he's washed. He's going to get a shot, but the Nick Chubb washed meter is like starting to rattle off the meter a little bit. Like
there's certainly harder running backs to usurp for playing time.
Yep.
Because at least it's still like semi-ambiguous, and
right.
They'll be winning games, good defense. Like there's enough opportunity.
So this is not a guarantee, but this is like lottery ticket. Give it a shot. A lot of these round 18
offense
guys,
in general is just going to be better. It's just they had a lot of receivers. It kind of ties into the next guy, but they had a lot of injuries at receiver. It just gets gross. Like, of course, the offense is going to be worse last year.
If we're doing the last week of drafting ambiguous backfield in round 18, this is the guy who has the best shot of being the Rico Dowdle for this year in around 18 right now. So kind of fun to take a flyer on. And that brings us to our last player here, Jalen Noel. Shout out the Houston Texans.
Yup. I just think it's an underrated offense. He went in the third round. He's kind of in the same. Higgins has an easier path to playing time because he has to just kind of beat out Xavier Hutchinson. But first of all, you have Stroud, who's going to get a lot of passing yards. Christian Kirk and Nico Collins are two of the most injury-prone wide receivers. Some of the injury projections have them top 12 as guys who are likely to get injured. Nico's had hamstring issues. Not that both of them need to go down. Kirk is kind of the guy who's standing ahead of Jalen Noel for playing time. They traded a 7th round pick from the Jaguars. Obviously, partially the low investment is salary related because Kirk's getting a nice paycheck here. But Noel was taken 3rd round for a reason. The guys ahead of him have missed time. Christian Kirk has missed a lot of games. Nico Collins has missed games. There's competent quarterback play. He's pretty well liked among some of the draft people. Matt Harmon compared him to Josh Downs. He's gotten actually Christian Kirk comparisons. So I think this is just an offense where I don't think we can just assume that a guy that Jacksonville essentially didn't want is going to be this guy who's just going to hold down a 3rd round rookie forever. And we're taking Higgins literally 100 to 110 slots ahead of Noel. It would be far less shocking things that someone that compares to Josh Downs, who has this wiggle, good route runner. Matt Harmon really likes him, at least as a prospect. Maybe I haven't checked specifically on that, but someone that the draft people 3rd round draft capital, good offense, and a guy ahead of him that is injury prone. And I think Kirk is on the older side. I think he's 29, 30. I want to check
he's
that.
He's getting up there.
28, 29 in November. So, but still, he's had a lot of injuries.
He's approaching Unk status for sure. Now, I like Noel. It's funny enough, my comp for him coming out was Christian Kirk, and my hater comp for Jaden Higgins was, I swear to God, it's in the Discord, Xavier Hutchinson. So very strange, just like a big
that seems
body
to be a trend, yeah.
Big body athletic ad that doesn't really do much. So I'm not the biggest Jaden Higgins fan. I know he would probably play right now if he can beat out Hutchinson in 3 wide receiver sets, just as a big body, kind of like the Tesla bet if Tesla was worse at football. I know Higgins had college production, but I just really did not like how he gets off the line of scrimmage. I just don't think he's a disciplined route runner, and
It's scary. Like, you've
He's
just
so
seen guys like
overpriced.
that not work out. Like, not that I think he's okay. I've been like taking him like kind of where he goes, but we've seen big guys that win contested catch put up numbers in college just not pan out. As a Bears fan, look up Kevin White for a nice nostalgia crash out, by the way, number 7 overall pick. But yeah, it just on a pure bet to price basis, Noel gets taken. I think he was 79th overall. So that's like 40 picks later, and he goes 100 picks later in best ball. We're taking guys that got drafted after him. And in a deep class, I think that's a pretty solid bet in an offense that they want to throw the ball and they're capable, and the guys ahead. And Nico could go down too. He's pretty injury prone. If he didn't have so many injury concerns, we would be considering him like right in the scoop of things behind Chase. But he goes like more like 8th.
Yeah, Higgins feels like a bet on just his body, like the size and the athleticism, kind of like Keon Coleman and Xavier Legette as rookies. How did that exactly work out? Whereas Noel feels like a bet on the talent. I think he's a really good player. I think he's the 3rd best receiver on that roster. Now, whether that matters to the Texans off the rip, who knows? But again, like you said, he could ascend talent-wise. There's multiple injury-prone receivers ahead of him. Ascending young quarterback. Maybe the offensive line is better. There's a lot to like here. And when you get that late, you got to start just betting on talented players. And, even if they feel a little buried to start, man, that does not mean anything in the NFL.
Especially in best ball,
like change immediately.
Yeah, that's true. It could change by mid-season, and then he's a total smash. And when you mentioned the Keon thing, it does kind of vibes of like Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir type thing. Right. Like Shakir's the one who's actually put up real like NFL numbers. And even though I'm kind of relatively pro Keon Coleman, but it's getting ridiculous out here. He's going like 75 sometimes. Like,
right. Because
this people is like over Jordan Addison. Like, what are we doing? Like,
yeah, people are just lying to themselves about Jaden Higgins. They're just straight up lying to themselves. His price, I don't know how you can justify. Well, I get how you could justify it, but he is much more comparable to a Cedric Tillman bet. Like, actually, wait, no. Cedric Tillman is playing in 2 wide receiver sets with Joe Flacco, who airs it out. Jaden Higgins is behind Xavier Hutchinson and goes 60 picks earlier. Interesting. The market is going to market for sure, but Jalen Noel, bet on the talent, bet on the injury fragility on that depth chart, and see what happens. Why not? I love it. And honorary last click, because I couldn't put him on here and crash out again before we run out of Amari Cooper. Come on now, he's got a job. You got to.
I'm still getting sniped. Hey, for those,
I said the J slur. My apologies.
For those of you, who are OGs to our respective channels, you would have remembered that in May we were talking about Chubb, Keenan, and Amari, and now they are all on teams. Now we're not going full like Mr. What's the guy Arico on Twitter, where it's like last year I told you to pick the perfect players, but we literally did say like we literally drafted them like in the videos. Like it's hard
for CLV. Like
yeah.
Now Amari Cooper, I got no CLV for 99% of the contest. However, he is going to start flying up the boards.
Deep threat, like you want these deep home run guys. Even though like I don't necessarily like in love with like a Pierce, for example, like this guy can crack an 80-yard touchdown 100%. Like,
and he can, Amari Cooper, man, I'm just saying, he said it himself in his presser. He's got more juice than people think. So we'll play out how it does. He cannot drop 14% of his passes, but I think he's going to get a better catchable ball rate with Geno than he did with Deshaun Watson. Maybe that's a hot take, but I think Geno Smith is better at football than 2024 Deshaun Watson. And I think that he's going to get more deep balls.
He has an arm
than he did with, Josh Allen. Ask Stephon Diggs how he liked playing in the Joe Brady system for half a season as the primary deep threat. Ask Stephon Diggs how he liked
Oh, it's
that.
crazy. And there's a lot of options in Buffalo too. And he was traded for a third round pick less than a year ago
Yep.
by what we think is a competent organization.
He had 13. He barely knew the playbook, and he still had 13 targets in a game with Josh Allen. So this is all to say we don't need Amari Cooper to be the 3-4 turn he was last year. We need him to beat out Dante Thornton or Trey Tucker. Not both of them, one of them. Can Amari Cooper, who said that he received multiple offers from other teams, now he could just be saying it. I'm not going to do this best ball analyst thing where people just say, oh, the thing, I don't like Amari Cooper, so whatever he says is a lie because he said he got other offers from other teams, but he chose the Raiders because he gave him the best opportunity to show what he can do. Translation.
Yeah, I think
he went to the place he can get on the field.
I think the team said that they were talking to him for a while, and you know what that means because the team is incentivized to have you in camp. The team wants him there like 2 months ago, but he's probably waiting it out, seeing what the options are, what money he can get, like that kind of stuff. So it feels like more of his choice is why would the team want to take 2 months to sign someone? It's crazy. And there wasn't an injury. I mean, maybe the Jacoby Myers that could also open up targets, but I feel like that's like the best, like lurking in the shadows, like type of thing. That might be to just glaze the Raiders. Geno, who's like top 10, like PFF across the board in grades.
Yep.
Short, long, like this guy is so underrated. I tried to like use my fourth quarterback in Dynasty, and I'm just getting like crickets. So it's been crash out. Put some respect on Geno. Like, no, you cannot offer me a future third round pick for Geno. This is super flex. Get a grip. anyways.
That's out of pocket.
This is a best ball show. My apologies. I need to get that off my chest.
He's going to cook. Geno, that is. And Amari Cooper adds to it. I mean, I think he's a solid click. By the way, the best ball community 2 years ago are the same people that were debating me. I said Adam Thielen. If you watch the Adam Thielen tape his last year in Minnesota, I know the numbers weren't great, but he was drawing defensive pass interferences like at a top 2 rate in the league. That's indicative that like people were grabbing him because he was getting open, especially in the red zone. This was occurring. And if you just watch Adam Thielen, he still had something left in the tank. Is he prime Adam Thielen? No, that's why he's not like a round 3 pick like he was like 7 years ago. But he can still produce, give you some wide receiver 2 weeks, hit your lineup. He's so cheap. He's been a great piece to have the last 2 years.
He's getting
Amari Cooper,
by the minute, but yeah.
And Amari Cooper is 2 years younger now than Adam Thielen was 2 years ago when he was washed. So
he's one down year. Adams.
A guy can't have one down year, like in a horrible situation, horrible environment.
Did he have a wrist issue? He had some like injury issue, right? Yeah. I don't know. Does a wrist matter to catch the football? Maybe Tyreek Hill, who we take second round, had a wrist issue. Maybe Keon Coleman, certainly on ADP, is getting a pass for that. But I don't know. His name's Amari Cooper, so let's just take him. Not take him. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a best ball analyst, and I want one less thing to think about. And Amari Cooper's over the age of 30, so washed. And then when he inevitably has like a couple spike weeks, it'll be like, okay, it didn't matter anyway. Well, it did because he could be a really good advanced rate piece, and who knows what happens.
That Giants secondary ain't much. Like the front seven is legendary, but the secondary. All you got to do is just trust Amari, throw it deep, and he's a deep threat, inconsistent type of guy. 2 years ago with Flacco, he was ruining. If Cooper was at your Week 15 pod, it was a Joe. Or if he was on your team, you're winning. It was a wrap.
He's being drafted like he had the Nick Chubb injury. He's being drafted like his knee was blown out and bent the other way. Crazy. The guy played with Deshaun Watson, who's a creep with a busted shoulder and mental problems, who couldn't throw a zip more than 10 yards. And then he played in a Joe Brady offense, rotating 5 receivers, even when they had Stephon Diggs, who couldn't break 40 yards in that offense if it if his life depended on it.
It's
So I don't
crazy.
care. He played with Josh Allen. He actually played with Josh. I don't care. All they do is run and pass short. So who gives a shit? Amari Cooper can still ball. He has to stop dropping the ball. He went to the Raiders for a prove-it deal. He wants to get another 8-figure bag. He did not go there to sit behind Trey Tucker and Dante Thornton for $3 million. Like, let's think, people. Can we think for a second? I know that's not exactly what the best ball
No, and
community
he
wants
only
to do all
has
the
to
time.
be like one of them, right? Because it's Jacoby, Brock is tight end.
Yep.
Then I guess it's one of the two.
Trey Tucker and Dante Thornton. Just beat one of them. He's going to. Newsflash, he's going
The
to.
guy who had 1,100 yards 2 years ago, who's 31, who's 2 years younger than Devontae Adams, same age as Calvin Ridley. There are some other ones like you forget these ages. You just click them like, but yeah, maybe I got to just start streaming best ball and just laugh at people as I accumulate Amari shares and steal the rake. But
hey man, they got to lock in, smashes like Tutu Atwell and whoever the hell else they're taking that isn't on this list, okay? And I know Amari Cooper isn't on this list, but just assume any list we're making that's a bullish list, Amari Cooper's on it. All right.
He is the honorist. What is like, there's something higher than honorable, like the honorable mention.
Right.
Sir honorable mentionee Amari Cooper.
Always inducted. He's always got a seat at my cookout. My unseasoned cookout, Amari Cooper.
It's too chalk in our brains that he couldn't make the list.
Exactly. Amari Cooper, please, if you want to be my friend, I've stood up for you all off season. Oh God, we're getting to the pathetic part of the show. It's time to end the show, guys, but we glazed, we laughed, we cried, we flamed. Let us know below who your favorite player is from this list, and let us know who we missed out on. Who is a sleeper for you at this point? These drafts are getting crazy. These pieces are moving around fast. There's a lot of moving parts, so maybe we missed something. Let us know below. And hit like, and please subscribe. We're on the road to 50 subscribers. We'll get there one day. But
soon, once the attacks on the algorithmic attacks end.
Once they end, we're so up as best ball summer comes to a close. But from Shawn, from Sus, that'll be it for this one. Peace.